Well, hello once again, everyone. As you recall, the last couple of lectures we've talked about simple and compound meter. The thing about these meters is we organize them based on the idea of regularly occurring beats. And the reason these beats are regularly occurring is we can place accents along with them. Accent is just simply emphasis. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and a 2 and a 1 lotly 2 lotly 1 e and a 2 e and a. We can subdivide however we subdivide, simple or compound, into groups of 2 or 3. But downbeats are the most important part of any measure. And then we also have just the beats within the measure, and it's the beginning of each beat that is the most important part of the beat. But what happens when we obscure the beginning of a beat, either by skipping it altogether and just landing a note in a subdivision of the beat, or by sustaining a note over the beginning of a beat so that you don't hear an articulation of some kind on the beginning of a beat? Let's take a listen to this short rag piece by Scott Joplin. I think you'll enjoy it. It's called Weeping Willow, and it's an enjoyable little rag. We'll listen to the first 20 bars or so. Out. So what we have here is this wonderful little piece of music. What is the meter of this piece? Well, you see 2/4, and what does 2/4 mean exactly? What duration is the basic beat unit? Quarter note, that is correct. And how many quarter notes are you going to have in each measure? 2. So whatever music is in there, it has to take up the space of 2 quarter notes. Now, as we see with the subdivisions, 4/16 and 2/8 would take up the space of 2 quarter notes. 2/4 is also what kind of meter? Simple or compound? Simple, because each quarter note, each beat, divides nicely into 2 equal parts. And then each subdivision can be divided further. 1e and a 2 and 1 and etc. So we have here a simple duple meter. And when you have simple duple, you can think of it as 1, 2, 1, 2. You can subdivide 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and you can subdivide even further 1e and a 2e and a 1e and a 2e and a. But at the end of the day, everything is taking up the space of 2 quarter notes before you begin the next bar. Take a look at, it happens in bar 2, and there's a really good example of it in bar 6. We have tied notes. And what does a tie mean? When you continue to sound the note without re-articulating it. So 1e and a 2 and 1 and e and a. Notice I didn't say 2 there, because there was no note articulated right on 2. The pitch that was sounding on 2 was still sounding from when it happened on the end of 1. Same thing happens in bar 6. 1e and e If you look at the top line there, 1e and e Nothing happens on 2, nothing happens on the end of 2. Instead, you've got these pitches happening in very strange places, and nothing happening where we expect events to happen to get an accent. You'll notice when I was doing the rhythmic solfege just now, 1e and that sort of thing, 1e and e that I was putting a little extra oomph on the uhs and the e's. 1e and e 1 E and E, That's a natural response. We want to bring that out. The composer wanted to bring that out because it obviously happens in a place where you don't expect a longer note value to happen. When that happens, when you have a longer note value that obscures the beginning of a beat in some way and places the emphasis within that beat or within that measure in a place where it's not normally supposed to be, we call that syncopation. 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 Ragtime is famous for syncopation. And you could what we call in the business, quantize this and get rid of all the syncopation, and it would sound very dull. It's the syncopation that makes it work. So syncopation, again, it's simply the placing of accent in places that accents should not be placed. So something like this is fairly regular. 4 beats. We have a simple quadruple here. If I wanted to syncopate it, I might make it look something like this. Now this is gripping theatricality here. If we perform this with rhythmic solfege at a reasonable tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4. That and on the end of 2 there, 1, 2, and 4. That obscures 3. We don't have any event on 3 proper. And the event that we expect on 3 happens a little early. We place an accent on it that shortens up the event that was on 2 and shortens up and allows us basically to add an extra event. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4. It's a great way to go. This is syncopation. And there's a very specific type of syncopation I want to talk about right now. And that's called hemiola. Hemiola. In a hemiola, a syncopation is created that actually gives the effect of being in a different meter. Take, for example, this. Sorry about that. Sometimes the finale gets in the way of the thinking. Look at what I'm doing here. And we'll close it with this. So looking in the 3rd and 4th bars of the excerpt here. So if I do this with rhythmic solfege, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 4, and 3, 1, and 4, and 3. Now you've noticed I've written all of the dotted quarters as quarter tied to 8th. This is technically correct, but what's wrong? Why would I look at this and say, I think you can do better in terms of how this is notated? Syncopation and hemiola work when you really can feel the prevailing beat underneath, and it creates what Harold Krebs called metric dissonance or tension that needs to be resolved. And when you see this, it's a lot harder to see where the beats are. So I'm going to rewrite this a little bit. And I think you'll find this to be a better example of why that works. All I did was I flipped the location of the 8th and the quarter. Now this really shows you where beat 3 is in that bar. So I have 1, and 4, and 3. Yes, I had a quarter tied to an 8th, and then that is technically correct. That is the same as a dotted quarter or something that contains a space of 3/8 notes. But when it's written this way, you see the subdivisions of the beat a lot more clearly. you see where the beats are located, especially beats 1 and 3. In a quadruple meter, knowing where beats 1 and 3 are really helps. So 1, 2, and 3, 4. But the effect of this, when you create this hemiola, this repeated syncopation ideas, it makes you feel like you might be in some sort of compound meter because you hear just groups of 3. Let's listen to a piece that features this sort of thing prominently. This is the song "Point of No Return" by the band Kansas. We'll just listen to the opening of it. So let me bring the volume back up. Again, gripping videography going on here. At the beginning, you couldn't tell what the meter was. Let me go back and play the beginning. I'll click the beat regularly underneath it, and then you can see where we get this idea of metric dissonance or tension. That tension is a hemiola. Yes, I recognize that I've asked you to look at 2 YouTube videos within a YouTube video. So when you've got YouTube videos within YouTube videos, that can only mean one thing. Let's revisit our score here one more time. I want to show you one more idea here. If I'm in 4/4 time, what if for just half a second or so, 1 beat, 2 beats, 4 beats, I want to give the effect of being in compound time without actually having to change my meter? Well, the way to do that is we need to show an irregular subdivision. So here's a traditional subdivision of 4/4, 8/8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But what if I want to subdivide that last beat into 3? I use something called a triplet. And what that means is I'm going to fit 3 notes in the space of 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 lali. Notice it doesn't change. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 lali. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 lali. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 lali. The length of the beat doesn't change, but how I subdivide it does. What if I did this? What if I'm in 6/8? What if I'm in a compound meter? And I want to divide something into 2 for. Well, compound meters subdivide into 3. But what if I wanted to subdivide 1 beat into 2? This is a little more involved here, so. Let me fill in the notes here so you can see what happens. I would do something like this. It's called a duplet. Now, the general term is, for any irregular subdivision, any borrowed subdivision, if you will, is tuplet. Triplet, duplet, quadruplet, quintuplet. You can divide it into any number you want, and the general term for that is tuplet. We'll look at some more examples of tuplets in class. But in the meantime, take a listen to some interesting music that features these different subdivisions. Have a great day. We'll see you in the classroom.